Screen Slurps.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss the good, the bad, and the savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Meisner.
Happy New Year, happy 2025. Happy to be back on the podcast spectrum. It's been about a year.
We're back.
I shouldn't even say about. It's literally been a year.
Yeah. Did you ever watch the movie We're Back?
I grew up loving We're Back.
I also loved We're Back. That's like one of the movies Emily and I would watch, Emily, my sister, and I would watch like over and over again. We should watch that. We should do an episode on it.
You know, growing up, I didn't even realize, now that I'm nerding out over all these movies, I didn't even realize John Goodman was the freaking T-Rex.
No, yeah. I mean, I didn't even know that now, I don't think.
Yeah. He's been in so many movies that it's easy to forget. It's just like Willem Dafoe, honestly. He does everything these days. So looking back on We're Back now, it's just to think that John Goodman played such a pivotal role in that movie. And it all starts out with him playing golf. At that point, why don't you just go watch The Big Lebowski?
They do play golf,
bowling.
don't they?
Yeah.
I barely remember the plot of this movie. You seem to remember it much better than me.
Hey, I watched a lot of We're Back.
I'm sure I watched it a lot.
Just like I watched a lot of Land Before Time. A little bit of an opposite spectrum there because
Dinosaurs,
We're Back,
though.
It's like they're having a great old time playing golf,
isn't We're Back
walking through New
dark?
York City, and then
There's
we got
some dark parts to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like the contract the kids have to sign.
Yeah. Like that is a little dark.
Well, maybe we'll talk about that another time.
Well,
Today,
then we'll do an episode on We're Back later.
Today we're talking about something that's also dark. We're talking about Nosferatu. Or Nosferatu, however you want to pronounce it. Laura gave me a pretty hard time about that.
I will probably say it both ways. Just go with me. I feel like when I was watching an interview, Robert Eggers said it one way and Willem Dafoe said it another way. So I don't know what's the correct way. Whatever comes out of my mouth is what comes out of my mouth.
It's all up to you, however you want to say it. If you're American, just say Nosferatu, okay?
Nosferatu.
You say whatever you want. They're both acceptable.
Nosferatu makes me think of a nose. You know, like, and I feel like in this movie, there's not a lot of emphasis on his nose. There's emphasis on his mustache, which we can get into later.
He's also a count. I mean, and he likes to count. Maybe he's like the vampire from Sesame Street.
A two. I mean, they're both vampires. Very different vibes, though. Very different vibes.
So before we get into that, though, before we start counting...
This is a mess. We're all over the place, Adam. I was just telling Adam, like, it's been a year since we've done an episode. And I was like, do I even remember how to do this? And here we go. My tangents have begun.
It's all about learning to count and becoming a Transylvania vampire. But before we start to go into metamorphing into vampires, we're going to just talk about some things we've done other than watching Nosferatu. Some of the things that we've done are side slurps. That's right. That's what we call that, our side slurps.
Is this going to be like a year's worth of side slurps?
Man, I don't know. I don't know if I've kept track that well.
Well, like the big things, right? Why we haven't been doing episodes this last year. It's just like we've had a lot of crazy stuff happening. I mean, we got married the year before. This year we bought a house.
That's right.
That was our big thing. And we've been doing a lot of projects at the house, a lot of updates, renovations. We've been busy, people.
Yeah, I mean, getting a house is a big deal. It takes a lot out of your time schedule, and especially when you're trying to do renovations, updates,
on top of
fixing
working full-time jobs.
Yeah, and
everything else.
You realize after you buy the house, everything looks nice, but then you start, figuring out as you walk around the house after a while. There's something here, there's something there. This
Little
needs
things.
to be, yeah, exactly. So, it really kicked into our schedule as time progressed, and that is definitely one of the reasons why we were well away on this screen slurping time. But we are back. We definitely need to talk about that movie sometime.
We'll do it next episode. Okay. But we're back. We're happy to be back. Looking forward to doing more episodes. And let's get into it. Let's do side slurps, Adam. You want to go first? I always go first. You want to go first this time?
Sure, yeah. I most recently had just read the book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, which, what a name. I mean, that already, you're like...
Phil Dick.
Who? That's the easy way to say it. Just, hey, Phil Dick, what's going on? But, classic author, that is probably one of the most pronounced books that he has written because the entire Blade Runner film series is based upon that. I mean, most recognized just Blade Runner from 1982 was based upon that book. And I really just want to go back and watch Blade Runner now and just kind of see what was really relatable between the book and the film.
Yeah,
what was
or
most
understanding
relatable.
like what was cut from the film, and I always like doing that with adaptations.
Yeah, that's really the biggest thing, because from what I was thinking about it, it seemed that with the book there was this real prominence of them talking about how every human should own an animal, at least one animal, and it was difficult for a lot of humans to own animals because animals were extremely expensive, all depending on the type of animal that you owned. Many animals were extinct. They would look on this application to look at the price of animals, and they made a really big deal out of all of that, out of all of the different animals that you could get or couldn't get. And if you couldn't get a real animal, you would be getting an electric animal, essentially like an android animal, but they didn't call them android animals. They just called them electric animals because androids, on the other hand, were the things that Rick Deckard, the main character, was trying to bounty hunt for.
They're like more human, right? Androids are human.
Right.
Not so much.
Exactly.
Though humans are kind of animals in a way,
But nonetheless, they, from what I remember, they didn't talk about animals quite as much.
I mean, it makes sense though,
Runner.
cutting that from the film.
I
right?
think they still talked about animals.
Subplot.
I think they still brought up animals at one point, but barely. They made a point about electric animals at 1 or 2 points in the movie, where they mention an owl at one point in the classic Blade Runner movie that has electric eyes, I believe.
Oh,
and
that sounds like the good name for like a song.
Electric eyes?
Yeah. Doesn't that sound like a good love song? Like, she's got electric eyes.
Wow.
Looking at you with those electric eyes. Adam, I could write a whole song for you.
There you go. There you go. That was just one thing, though. I did that just recently, and it was cool. It was really cool to just kind of come to the realization now of reading that book and be like, whoa, this is where it all stems from. And I mean, other than that, I just started playing some video games that aren't brand new, but they were on sale, picked them up, and just gave them a whirl. So, when the new year comes, things go on sale, give them a try. And one of them, Pillars of Exile, that was very reminiscent to me of the classic RPG game Neverwinter Nights, which I spent a lot of time playing when I was back in high school. So I thought that was really cool. Very, very cool RPG style game. And I think I also dove into a little bit of The Division 2 and Mass Effect. So again, they're a few years old now. Probably
we play such different games.
Probably about like 7 years old or something now, but 6 or 7 years old. I don't know. These games get dated so quickly, but they're still so much fun.
Things change. So, even some of the older games are, I think, some of the best games.
Yeah. So cool though. And the newer ones that keep coming out too, they get so good. So many new things just keep coming, and it's just wow, just so much fun. But what have you been up to, Laura? What's new on your book, your spectrum?
So you started off with reading. I'll talk about reading. Today is January 1st. first of the year. So I just did my kind of reading wrapped for 2024. And listeners, if you listened before, you know I'm a really big reader. So I just want to say I read 114 books. But that's really because I work for a job that luckily I can kind of listen to audiobooks sometimes while I'm working. So that's the only reason why my count is so high. I will give that little caveat. But I love reading, obviously. Read 114. My top book for the year was The Book of Lost Names, which is this really great historical fiction about a woman who helps children flee from Nazis during World War II. Really, really, really good book. And then currently I am listening to the Cher memoir, the audiobook of the Cher memoir, which is a lot of fun. I am a big fan of Cher. She's one of my top karaoke artists that I like to sing. And she does the narration for portions of the audiobook, which is really great. I always love when like the musicians or the people themselves do their own audiobooks because it just feels like you're like having a legitimate discussion with them. So that's a lot of fun. Next, moving into video games like Adam, I've also picked up a few things now that we're in the new year and we've had some Steam sales and such. On Steam, right, I got like this game called Strange Horticulture, which is this fun little like puzzle plant game. But really what I'm obsessed with right now, and Adam will laugh at me because I play it so much, but that is Infinity Nikki. On the PlayStation, I play it on the PlayStation. And at the core of its what it is, it's a dress up game. Like you just dress up and get clothes and find clothes. But it's actually so much more than that. It's very, very similar to Genshin Impact, just opposed to Genshin, how you're doing like combat. And this one, you're doing styling challenges. And it's beautiful. And I'm obsessed with it. I've been playing it a lot. Adam hasn't gotten into it yet.
I mean, I just laugh every time I peer up and see you're playing the game. And it's as you mentioned, some kind of dress-up challenge, and you're in a new outfit.
But it's always the ugliest outfits that win the challenges, right? Because it's all point-based. So I will make the most disgusting-looking outfits you could ever imagine.
But the outfit will be called something like Sexy Farmer outfit or something.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, some of the themes that they have. Yeah, like Sexy Farmer. Like, what does that mean? But hey, I'm having a lot of fun. It's so similar to Genshin Impact, though, which again I talk about a lot. Like the mechanics, the menus, even your little side character. Adam's not a big fan of Paimon from Genshin Impact. He always makes fun of her.
The cat character in this game, though, is cool.
Yeah, this one is Momo, who's like a little cat that can talk. But he's kind of similar to Paimon. Like I was telling you the other day, they're both obsessed with food. They're like the little sidekick, but Momo's a little better than Paimon, I think.
Yeah, I would say so.
But there's like a whole lore to Infinity Nikki that I don't really know about because this is like the 5th game in the series and I've never played any of the other ones. So, but I think it's like a lot involved. But I'm really, really enjoying Infinity Nikki a lot. And yeah, I think those are big things, right? Otherwise, it's like, as we said, we've been doing a lot of stuff around our house, watching TV, watching movies. We'll get into more of that as we keep doing more episodes, I think. So maybe for our first comeback, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and we'll see what else keeps coming with the new shows that are coming out. You know, I'm sure another season of The Floor will come out.
Oh, okay, yeah. The Floor. Adam and I were obsessed with The Floor. We binged that. We binged like 8 hours of The Floor in one day when my dad was here. It was a lot of The Floor.
I think we put it on just to see if we could entertain your dad.
Well, I think it was just like a background show. Yeah, we just put it on and then we were like hooked. Same thing with like celebrity or pop culture Jeopardy. We're big fans of that right now too. Been watching that. But also shout out to My Lady Jane. Bring it back. Everyone tell Amazon not to cancel it and bring us back for a second season.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. I mean, I think they already said that it's done, but
okay, but they said that about other shows, Adam. They said Lucifer was canceled and then Netflix picked it up and there were like 2 more seasons.
See, but Netflix picked it up.
Okay, well, Netflix, listen. Netflix, if you're listening, pick up My Lady Jane, please.
Well, that, I believe, brings us into our film of the week, Nosferatu. I gotta say it in...
you have to get an accent like Orlok has.
Yeah, and speak in the Dayak language.
Is that what it is? Dayak?
It's a language that's been lost and forgotten at this point. It's not used anymore.
Oh, is that what they're speaking in the movie?
Yes.
I didn't even look into that bit. I assumed it was like Romanian or something.
No, it's a language that's not used anymore.
Oh. How did Bill Skarsgård learn it?
They must have researched it.
I'm just kidding.
I didn't do the research on it.
Obviously, I didn't even know what language it was.
I don't know the language. I don't know the words.
I just know it was a kind of sexy. I just like Bill Skarsgård. It's sexy in the way that it's Bill Skarsgård with his deep voice. I like all the Skarsgårds. It's like a running joke with me and my friend Elise. I was obsessed with Alexander Skarsgård in college because I watched a lot of True Blood. There was this whole joke where I was like, billions of Skarsgårds, because there's tons of them. All that to say, I like them, and I like Bill.
So even though we're married, she just wants to be with the Skarsgårds. It's cool.
They're my hall pass.
You heard it recorded here, so. Nosferatu, it's a gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. Would you have expected that, ladies and gentlemen, even though the film is just an entirely retold story of Dracula? Whoa!
What? Yeah, no, I mean, if you've read Dracula, there are, not a lot of surprises in this film.
But there's more to be said on that. I mean, come on. The film was directed by Robert Eggers, screenplay by Robert Eggers. I'm going to say up front, if I mispronounce any one of these cast members' names, we're
doing our best.
Give me a slide.
I do think you're right there. I think it's Eggers.
Jaron Blaschke did the cinematography, music by Robin Carolyn, and the cast stars the assortment of Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult, Lily Rose Depp, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Roran, Willem Dafoe, and many others. I mean, I shouldn't say many others, but a good amount.
That's like the principal cast, other than the Doctor, also. A close-knit cast. But I liked that. Like, I liked that it really was a focus on just them. And I think, too, what I liked about this movie as we get into, obviously this is also a remake of the 1922 film Nosferatu, the silent black and white film that was made in Germany back in the day, which was an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. We can kind of talk about that, Adam, right? Like looking back at the history of the film, obviously 1922, very early in filmmaking, where's no talking, we're in the black and white stage. And this, the original Nosferatu was really like taken from Dracula. And when the movie was made, the estate and the wife of Bram Stoker were quite upset that they had essentially like ripped off the story of Dracula. And there was like legal proceedings against the film, and the judge ordered that all copies of the film be destroyed. And luckily some did survive, which is how today we're able to watch this movie. But otherwise, like it would have just been lost to us all. So that movie, came out, and we've been able to recreate it, and they've done some new versions of it, updated versions of it. And then what we've just watched is essentially the remake. But it has its differences, and I think it's done expertly well. Like, as we'll get into this, I think it'll be clear that I really, really enjoyed this movie. But you can tell that it really does pay homage to like the 1922 version and makes it a little darker.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with what you're saying there, and I think with what Robert Eggers has done with the screenplay for this, if you haven't seen any of the other Dracula films that have been created, there's plenty to go by. Or if you haven't read the story of Dracula in your life, I mean, my God, just watch this movie, and it gives you a wonderful synopsis of understanding what to go off of with what Dracula is, in the formation of Robert Eggers' version, essentially. And play with that as you will, and take a look at some of the other versions of Dracula that are out there. Compare and contrast at that point.
Well, they each have their own little like taste and flair.
Exactly.
Right? Like, I don't know who directed the Gary Oldman one. I just always call it the Gary Oldman one. But that one, right? Like, that's another really famous Dracula film that people know. And I feel like that is a little more like sexy and like trying to be this like romantic and this kind of like sultry, lusty version. And then you have, you know, the original 1922, which was just this like horror whatever of its time. And then there's been other like Willem Dafoe was in another remake called like Shadow something or other that has its own version of it. And then you've got like Dracula 2000, right, with like Gerard Butler or whatever. That's terrible. And then you have this one, and this one, it's like Eggers' take on Dracula and this story, like I said, it's like gothic at its core. It is very much like a gothic film, and it's dark, and I feel like it has a lot of these themes of like love versus lust and like good versus evil and where that comes from. And he's just like, it's kind of psychological in a way, especially with the focus on the main character Ellen, and who's played by Lily Rose Depp. And I just really liked this version of it.
I mean, I find it interesting that people come out of this movie and they get confused as what the meaning is of the movie. And I've seen that from articles online or people making comments just like, what was, you know, on Reddit, things like that. What was the point of Nosferatu? Like, what do you get out of that? And it's like, it's a telling of what the guy is trying to do with, and we'll get into the story here.
Sacrifice, but also just like, I don't even know what I was just going to say. I remember you telling me about some of the reviews you were reading and things people were saying. And this is one of those times where I'm like, you're wrong and I'm right. Not you specifically, but other people. But yeah, let's get into it a little more. Like, let's talk a little about Robert Eggers, maybe.
I mean, if you haven't seen any of Robert Eggers' other movies, then, well, let this be, as I mentioned before, let this be an awakening to some skill in the writing craft. I'll just say that. But if you have seen some of his other movies, that's wonderful too. I personally am a big fan of his previous work, such as The Witch, great horror film that he did in years past. I say years past, but it's not like it's that long. It's not that long,
yeah.
2015.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this one, Nosferatu, is only his fourth film, right?
Right.
So, not too long ago.
And then he did The Lighthouse.
Another great film. And I feel like stylistically, you can see a lot of similarities between The Lighthouse and between Nosferatu. You know, like the black and white bits and kind of the like shots and things like that. I think... And I don't see as much similarity with the cinematography specifically between this and The Witch, but maybe I just need to rewatch The Witch also. But between this and The Lighthouse, I feel like I can tell like he has a style that he's going for.
Yeah, and I think it's just the way he puts his story together with the writing. I think it's just it's something that's not difficult to follow in terms of just piecing the elements together, and not that's like, it's not something for children to watch per se, but
no, this movie
it's just
is pretty
something
unsettling.
very nice and accepting in terms of, as a audience member, as a viewer, it's something that's, you know, still thrilling, still something that you're like, I'm getting really sucked into this, but it's just that pleasantness of accepting the writing in terms of you're just going step by step with him the entire time. Very, very nice.
I do feel like he has a way a lot, you know, The Witch, Lighthouse, this movie, Nosferatu. His films are slower paced, right? There's a lot. He has like a lot of background, I feel like, that he kind of creates. And though it's not explicitly told on screen, you kind of get the background on these characters and the story. And the movies are kind of a slow burn. It's a lot, you know, it's like beautifully shot and maybe not that much dialogue at times. It's just a lot of like leading. And then he has these like bits in there that like really grab you and are like really psychological and kind of mess with you. And then he always has the ending, which is like, I feel like The Witch had a similar ending where it's like the sacrifice of this young woman to, you know, save humanity or save whoever. And it's just, I don't know, there's something beautiful in the way that he sets up his plot lines and the way the film develops and the characters develop.
Yeah, and with this film too, going along that ride with all of the characters in this film opens up with Lily Rose Depp and her character in this kind of cold looking scenescape, I'll say. And she's walking in her bedroom, and all you see among her bedroom set are these shadows of Nosferatu in the drapery of her windows. You don't actually see him himself, but you see his shadowy figure, which as soon as I saw that in the movie, I was thinking kudos to the team for setting up those shadows and everything in the movie. And this is playing out as she's walking around and hearing him start to call out to her and basically saying, like, you're going to give yourself to me. Like, do you accept, me? Mm-hmm. And she's saying, like, yes, I want you, basically. And so we're learning, like, oh, she wants to be with...
She's given herself to him.
Yeah, she's given herself to him. Like, she wants to be with Nosferatu.
Well, it's interesting. So first comment I wanted to say right about the shadows. Like, I think I agree with you. The shadows and the way that they showed him on screen showed him on screen, I'll say, I think was done so well. And even in the marketing for this movie leading up to it, I never saw any images or footage of Orlok, like of the Dracula character at all. It was all focused on either Nicholas Holt's character or Lily Rose Depp's character, the Hutters. Is that their last name, Hutter? And we never really saw Orlok. And I think that was done purposefully, right? So there's more of this unease and unknowingness of what he is or who he is. And then when we finally do get to see him on screen, we're kind of like shocked by his appearance and his voice and what we're getting. So as you said in the beginning, the opening with the use of the shadows and the drapery. And I love like how he held his hands like so reminiscent of the 1922 Nosferatu with his like long fingers and nails sticking out in front of him like dinosaur arms or something. But it's, you like things like that. You're like, oh, this is it. Like, we're in this movie. But also, too, to your second point, like her giving herself over to him in the beginning, I think that's the beginning of one of the themes that I kind of saw running through this movie is that she herself, right, comes off as this very like innocent and naive young woman who, is newly married and figuring out life. Yet you see that she has this kind of obsession with like the dark and the Nosferatu side of the world and like gives into that at times, like in the beginning when she does give in to him and offer herself to him. So it's this interesting play of her character that we see throughout, kind of the two faces of her, the two versions of her, which I really, really found interesting with her character. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's the craziest thing that, her character has that kind of depth to it with her being with death. And then my thing too is that, and this will, continue on. Well, first I want to say she wakes up from a dream. That whole scenario in the opening, that was this whole dreamscape that she was in.
But I think it's real. I think she was dreaming of something that actually happened when she was younger.
Yes, I will agree with that because that I think that does get revealed
later on.
Spoiler.
There's lots of spoilers in this, people.
Yeah, I believe that does get revealed later in the movie. But she wakes up in her room. Nicholas Holt's character is revealed. Thomas. He comes to her bed and he starts talking to her about how he's got a job that he has to go to with his employer. One thing I enjoyed in this scene in particular, they have a cat that jumps on the bed in the middle of the scene.
We love the cat.
I don't know if that was supposed to happen in the scene.
I think it's another nod back to the 1922 version because remember we just watched it and she had a cat.
That does make sense too. And does this also play with the rats that are involved in the movie too?
Oh, Adam, I didn't even think about that.
We got
maybe.
The cats, we got the rats.
And she's the cat and Nosferatu's the rat. Adam, I think you just came up with something. I think so. But also, did you I don't know if you realized the cat in this movie, its name was Greta, which is the name of the actress who played the Nina character in Nosferatu 1922. So that her name was a nod to the original actress.
The cat?
Yeah. The cat's name was Greta.
Oh, okay.
in the film.
Oh.
See?
Ah.
See? But we love the cat. I also love how they specifically did like sound to make the cat purring louder. Like at certain times
know.
I'd hear the purring and I'm like,
It was very funny though to just
love the
see,
cat.
Thomas sit down on the bed, talk to Ellen, and then you got a cat jumping on the bed. That was very wonderful to see the integration of the cats there.
Yeah. But as Adam was saying, right, like the film opens, Thomas has this opportunity for possibly having a new job now that they're married. And Ellen, you can tell, she's prophetic in a way. It seems like she has like premonitions or kind of knows what's going to happen. And you can tell she doesn't want Thomas to go, like she's afraid and worried for him leaving. And he's like, don't you worry, honey. I'm going to get us a job and money and buy you a house.
Exactly. Just like everybody here. Oh, yeah, don't worry. I'll go get some money.
It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
I hope that not everyone's jobs are like this in the world. Just, don't worry, I'll go to my boss. And then sure enough, Thomas goes to his employer, who is Ernok. And Thomas goes and talks to him. And little does he know that Ernok explains that Thomas must go and sell Schloss Grunwald in Wisborg to Count Orlok. Craziest of names, but
it's I think Wiesborg, right? Because it's in Germany.
Yeah,
so
Wiesborg?
The W's are V's. I think it's a fictional city. I don't think it's real. And yes, as Adam said, we learn Orlok, this old count in Transylvania, in this country far away, wants to buy a home in Germany. And so Thomas needs to go to Orlok in Transylvania and have him sign the deed before it can be completed and then come back. So he is now having to set off on a journey and leave his poor wife all alone with their family friends.
The thing he's most worried about is having to travel that far.
6 weeks. Okay, and also, for the traveling, did he travel those whole 6 weeks on a horse?
That's what it seems like. The entire
I feel
time
like
he's horseback.
that's not feasible. I mean, I know that's how they had to do it back then. I get it. But like, didn't they have trains?
And what kind of food did he take with him for 6 weeks? Like,
cheese and bread. That's all. That's what they ate, man. Cheese, bread, and apples. I don't know.
I mean, I think you'd be doing fine. You'd be like, all right.
I feel like in the Gary Oldman one, Keanu Reeves is on a train for some of it. Like they had trains during this time,
no,
didn't they?
Horseback only. He's got a pouch full of brie.
Poor horse. A horse riding 6 weeks.
He's got some goat cheese.
Across Europe? I guess Germany is a little farther east, so it's not as far.
A portable charcuterie board.
Exactly. That's what, exactly, Adam. That's what he was eating.
So Thomas goes off. He goes to head to the castle and do his job. And he leaves Ellen with a friend of his to care for. Harding and his wife, Anna. Which in the original one, was it his sister or was it still his wife?
No, I think it's his wife.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't remember, actually. So I say that, but I don't know. Whatever.
Something we'll have to dive into.
Well, whatever.
Oh, well.
In this one, it's his wife.
Yeah, it's his wife in this one. There. I believe I read that in one of them, it's his sister.
Oh.
But yeah, I'll have to dive into that. But in this adaptation, it is his wife. So,
yeah. And the Harding, you can tell, is like a wealthier gentleman, right? I think he owns the shipping company that's what he owns. So they have money, and he has 2 daughters, and you can tell they're more well off. But just by the way, too, like he and Thomas kind of interact with each other, and Thomas is like, I'll pay you back for the money you loaned me, right? And Harding's like, oh, don't worry about it, chap.
Yeah.
It's all good. But yeah, so we have these family friends or whatever who Ellen is going to be staying with while Thomas is away. And Harding, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, as you mentioned, who I feel like is kind of having like a come up. I think he's been into like more things lately. He's becoming a little more famous, so there is some controversy around him. I don't know if you know Adam, but he is partnered with a lady who is much, much older than him.
Ew.
And there are some thoughts that there could have been some like grooming happening, and he's only like 3 years older than his stepchildren.
Oh.
Yeah. Anywho.
Well, back to the movie. So,
You know, it's not an episode if we don't have my random little tangents, okay? Okay?
this is how he got wealthy.
How he did?
No, I'm just saying in the movie.
Oh, guy found himself a cougar. No, in this one, he has ships. It was his father's company, I think they mentioned. He took over his dad's shipping company.
But in the film, Thomas, he is headed towards the castle. And this is when things start to turn sideways for Thomas.
Poor Thomas.
Poor Thomas and his charcuterie board.
Another tangent. I did see this, like one of the articles was talking about how Nicholas Hoult always plays these like sickly looking, like down on their luck.
I just think of the freaking TV show he was in, the classic.
Skins?
Yes.
And see, I think of him from like Warm Bodies. Right there, he plays like a sickly little zombie, or The Great, which was a really, really good TV show. If no one's watched, Holt's a good actor. I like Holt.
I never watched all of Skins, but
no, I don't think I've seen all of it either.
That was what I was first introduced to him.
He's kind of a douchey character in that show, right?
Yeah, he is. But
anyway, he's on his way to Transylvania.
Yeah,
and right before he gets to the castle, he stops in this little like gypsy-esque village, it seems.
Yes. And he is greeted by the gypsies. They don't want him there, but he explains, I'm on my way to the castle.
And they're like,
yeah.
The castle.
Yeah.
Don't go to the castle.
And he tells them, I'll give you twice the rental fee for me to stay the night. And they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. You can stay here. And so he shacks
well, they're not
up.
going to turn down his money.
Yeah, shack up. So he goes to bed and he gets awoken in the night. He hears noises and he gets up and hears and sees that they're claiming to kill a vampire in the middle of the night. And they open up a coffin to stab a vampire in the chest, or so they say. And they stab this corpse in the chest, and the thing just awakens and yells and comes up in the night as they stab it, and freaks the hell out of him.
Yeah, well, right, because at this point, like you can tell that the gypsy people, they believe in this, like they believe in Nosferatu and the idea of vampires, and to him, it just seems like this uncivilized, you know, practice. And he's like, what are these people doing? Like just exhuming dead bodies and stabbing them. Like they're crazy. Yeah. What are they doing? But, you know, I think this is his first taste of what's to come, and maybe him getting to believe that this is possible. And it's not so backwater maybe as he initially thought it could be.
Yeah. And that's the start of it all. And so Thomas arrives at the castle on the next evening, and he's greeted by Count Orlok. He's all clothed up. You can't see him the way he should be without any kind of mask.
No, they definitely do a big reveal, I feel like, when you finally do see him.
Yeah, they kind of wrapped him up a little bit.
He's got a big
Not
fur
completely,
cloak.
but yeah, he's got a whole fur coat.
I mean, and Bill Skarsgård's big, right? He was 6'4"? Is that what he did? So he's this very looming, like, character, and his voice. I read that he trained with an opera singer to like lower his voice a whole octave for this role. And then he gets this accent that's very like old world sounding, and I won't even pretend to try and do what his voice sounds like, but it's so good. It's a great voice. Like Bill Skarsgård, he does great at these like characters, right? He's Pennywise. He has this way of being able to like encapsulate and become something else.
Yeah, I mean, he had a great stature about him, standing there, being the character, speaking as the character of Count Orlok. And
Adam was really obsessed with his mustache.
I wouldn't say obsessed, but I was definitely intrigued that you've got this one look of Nosferatu from 1922, and on the new one, there were some similarities with the hands, even the skin tone, even the head to an extent, kind of
the
similar
weird
in the way the
shape
build,
of it, yeah.
the baldness of the head, the decaying of the skin and everything. His face, though, still had a little bit of, like, naturality to it.
Yeah, like, he could pass kind of as human-esque.
Yeah. And then he had a big old mustache.
Yeah, a big old mustache. And also, wait, that's the old one. I was making fun of the hat that he was wearing in the 1922 Nosferatu. It looked like He had his like hair wrapped up in a bath towel.
So that was cool. Yeah, that was cool to see.
But so there, Thomas now, he's at the castle with Orlok. They have to sign all this paperwork and stuff. And you can tell, like, Thomas has been growing more and more uneasy as he's at the castle. Like, he knows something's wrong. He can tell there's something up with Orlok. And the way that they shot this initial scene when he first sits down to dinner, I thought was done so well. I remember this is one thing that stuck out to me. And we were talking about this, Adam, as we left the film. The way the camera work where Orlok would be on one side of the room and then it would like zoom in on Thomas and Orlok would be like on the other side of him, or like he would be at the table and then suddenly he's at the fireplace. Like it was unsettling, like the movements and how quick things were cutting and going, that it like added to the anxiety that you're seeing Thomas go through and experience while he's there. And it makes you feel that way kind of as you're watching it too. Like, you're like, what is happening? Like, what's going on? I thought that scene was done really, really well.
Yeah, and I think, too, the use and emphasis of certain objects in a scene, certain body parts in a scene, things like that. I think Robert Eggers really has a great understanding of signifying importance of people and, objects and things in a scene. I think it's like screenwriting 101 with Robert Eggers when you watch his movies, which is what I like to take away from watching his films, because there's been plenty of movies I've seen from all the movies that you and I watch across time where it's like I watch the movie and when you walk away and you're not entertained, it's like, well, why wasn't it good? I think a lot of that time comes from just seeing the movie, and I think myself or anyone else that would say that would be like, well, the movie was a drag. And movies are like that to me because it's just...
it's uninteresting.
Yeah, there's nothing interesting about it. Two characters might walk into a scene, a location.
And it's just like close-ups of them,
yeah,
right?
It's just them sitting there and talking. And what's to take away from that? What are they talking about? Like, it could just be like, hey, you want to go get coffee or something? And it's like, okay, well, what's important about this? Like, what's to be had from getting a cup of coffee? And then we'll cut to a scene completely unrelated. And it's like, okay, well, then what does that have to do with anything? When are the characters getting coffee?
Yeah.
Like, it's
but
things like that.
I agree. Eggers has a way of like focusing in and doing these really interesting shots. One of the ones we didn't talk about in the beginning, and that her opening like dream, quote unquote, sequence, there was this beautiful shot that's like a very far zoom out, right? And you see the whole estate and her very small standing in front of it. And there's like text above because it's translating what Orlok is saying. Like, he does shots like that, like these really like wide zooming shots. And then he does these like close-ups, which aren't on faces, but on like things, like a focus maybe on the locket that Thomas has with Ellen's hair in it. Or the really cool shots he does where you're seeing the person from behind, but you can see their face reflected in a mirror. And like, he does a few of those shots as well. Like, just things like that just make it interesting to watch. It just, like you were saying, it adds something to the film.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that we didn't talk about, but before Thomas even goes to the castle, it was something that Ellen had given him, which was the locket.
The locket.
And that was something that was important. That was a scene that, Ellen has this locket. She cuts off part of her hair and puts it into the locket as a piece of memorabilia for him to hang on to, as like a remembrance for him to hang on to, like, hey, keep this with you so you can think about me. It's for you.
I think was a common thing though also back then, to give like a locket of your hair to your lover, husband. I think that was like a thing people did. Do you want to wear a locket of a piece of my hair?
I think I'm good.
Or we can do, like, what's their names? Machine Gun Kelly and what's her name? Megan Fox. Didn't they wear like vials of each other's blood?
I think I'm going to
We're not doing that. I'm just saying that's the new age version of it.
I think in the original Nosferatu, I think Thomas had a locket still. But Nosferatu,
There was a locket because Nosferatu saw it, right? And he's like,
he just had the
what a
locket.
beautiful wife.
Yeah. Oh, she's got a beautiful throat.
Oh yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, yeah. What a beautiful throat.
Yeah.
Which is something we could talk about. So okay, let's keep going here though. Thomas is at the castle. He knows something's wrong. He wakes up in the morning and has these like bite marks on his chest. And that's one thing I want to talk about. And we kind of discussed a little last night when we were watching the 1922 version. I find it so interesting that Eggers decided to, in this film, go with the vampire like feeding from the heart as opposed to feeding from the neck. I feel like a lot of versions of Dracula, he feeds from the neck. Like it's kind of this like sexy, you know, like a kiss, but turns into a bite. And, you know, True Blood does that, like the Gary Oldman one, even the 1922 Nosferatu, like all biting from the neck. And this one, he bites from the heart, which I just found so interesting. And you were saying, Adam, that that's based on like folklore from the region back in that time.
Yeah, I had read it in a few articles online that Robert Eggers had explained that was inspired by folklore, which vampires often drank blood from the chest.
Yeah,
which makes sense.
No, it makes sense, right? Because the heart is seen kind of as like the source of, you know, blood, but also like your being, like a human soul, right? You know, love is always like from the heart. So I think it's an interesting thing. Like I like that. I'm surprised other, you know, versions of Dracula haven't done the same. So it's just funny because in the 1922 one, he says, your wife has a beautiful throat. And that's because he wants to bite it, right? But this one, they don't bite on throats. He does it sometimes. He does sometimes eat from the throat, like, but mostly he goes from the heart.
Yeah, and so after the first night of him getting bit in the chest, the next night, Thomas still approaching Orlok, trying to get everything, you know, sorted out. The next night, Orlok takes Thomas's locket, which contains a lock of Ellen's hair. Now, this is when things continue to intertwine. It just keeps getting more and more mingled here.
He's been countries away from her, and now he finally has a piece of her, and then he's like, I'm coming, baby. As soon as I get this house deed signed, I'm coming for you. And meanwhile, right, while Thomas is here at the castle with Orlok having these terrible nightmares, and he knows something's up, right? Like he's like, let me leave. And Orlok says, no, you stay. And so while he's going through this whole ordeal and having these like terrible nightmares and terrifying experiences, similarly, Ellen is back home in Germany with the Hardings, and she has taken a downturn, right? So we learn kind of that as a child, she had these kind of, they're just like, she's melancholic. Like she has this melancholy where she would kind of have these like fits and spasms and go into this major depression. And it seems like that has come back now that Thomas is gone. So she's at the Harding's house and she starts like sleepwalking and going into these fits where she kind of experiences like seizures and epilepsy in a way and really goes into this depression. And the Hardings have no idea what to do. And they're like, what is going on here?
But right after he takes the locket, and you've got Thomas in the castle.
Yeah.
So Thomas is trying to go home at this point, and Orlok insists he stays until he's no longer ill. I mean, I think that's pretty ridiculous that, you know, he has to stay in the castle, and Orlok, you're listening to this Count Orlok, and you're forced in there. I mean, this is already part of the movie, but I would do the same thing that Thomas ends up doing, which is, you know, jumping.
Get the hell out of Dodge. Yeah. Well, I think Orlok wanted to keep him there because I think his plan was to kill him. You know, like not, for him not to go back to Ellen.
I guess
at all.
Before that, Thomas does sneak around.
Yeah.
He sneaks around. There's rats in the castle. There's rats everywhere. And Thomas does, you know, see that there is a coffin in Orlok's hidey hole. So
lots of coffins, though. Who do you think was in the other coffins?
More dead people? I don't know.
Because like in the original Dracula, right? He has like 3 wives. Is it maybe like, you know, the wives that maybe are no longer around or something?
Yeah.
Or at least in the Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman, he has 3 wives.
So he tries to check the coffin.
I would never have opened that coffin. Thomas is a braver man than me.
Yeah, that is bravery. And he does it at night, too. So worst time.
Right? Like the sun is setting. Like, you idiot. You've seen him at night.
Right at the worst time, and he tries to hit him with the pick, and he fails because as he goes to use it, that's exactly when Orlok's getting up and
then he's like, oh shit, he is a vampire.
I wish he would have said that.
Ah shit.
Ah shit.
He's a vampire.
And Thomas flees for his life, and he goes to get out the window.
Yeah, jumps out the window.
And that's the worst thing, because you think, oh, well, it'll be an easy escape. But no, he jumps at quite the height.
Yeah.
So he does end up.
I mean, and I think Orlok assumes he's dead.
Yeah. But Thomas does end up surviving as time progresses. He does end up living.
He does. So he's found by some nuns who kind of know of the Nosferatu and kind of heal him, and bring him back to health so that he can return to Ellen. Because he knows Orlok is after Ellen. Thomas has this, he just knows, he has this feeling Orlok's going to Germany and he's going to take Ellen. So Thomas is like, I need to go home and save my wife. And so he's heading back home. And then this gets to what's happening simultaneously back in Germany, which is what I was talking about a little bit ago, Adam, is that she has kind of taken a turn for the worse, right? And she's fallen into this depression and these kind of fits, and she goes into these trances and these rages and just this fear. And she keeps saying he's coming.
And the best way to treat all of that, of course, is to just get drugs on a cloth and
tie
shove
him
it in
to
your
a bed
face
and
tie them to a bed and drug induce them until they pass out. So
Harding calls the doctor, who is played by the actor that's from The Witch, plays the dad in The Witch, and he's kind of feeling like there's something going on, right? Because he has another patient who happens to be Thomas's employer, who's kind of exhibiting similar symptoms, we'll say, right? He's gone a little crazy. He keeps talking about he's coming. He's eating the heads off of birds. He's a little crazy. And he's kind of seeing these similar things happening with Ellen. And he tells Harding, I know this man. There's this Swedish professor who has kind of turned to alchemy and study of the occult, but I think we need to bring him in. And that's when we're introduced to Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, and that's when he joins the club of
the vampire hunting party.
The new version of Mickey Mouse Club.
The new version of Mickey Mouse Club.
Von Franz. Yes, and as he joins, things get even more exciting because he's like, yes, I'm so excited. Look for Nosferatu.
Yeah, well, he instantly, right? He goes to see Ellen and he instantly is like, oh, this is Nosferatu. This is the plague of Nosferatu. And he's coming and we need to be prepared. And Franz is like, dude, you crazy. You are a crazy man. Get out of here. She's just, she just has these fits. She's a little crazy herself. But Franz is like, no. She is possessed by the demon and the Nosferatu.
Yeah, Franz does not believe in demons and things like that, and everyone else is trying to tell him, listen, you got to prepare yourself. This thing is real. And he's like, no way. That can't be right.
Get out of here.
And then, meanwhile, with all of this, Thomas does return to Wiesborg. As Orlok's arrival brings the plague.
So while Thomas is coming over, Orlok is also coming over.
Yeah, as Thomas is trying to return, Orlok is also trying to come over and bring the plague with him. All of the rat symbolism that's going on.
Well, I think it's he is the plague, and the rats just kind of follow him with their own plague. So he's on the ship, the Demeter, which is the ship owned by Harding. Full circle.
Orlok appears to Ellen in a dream, taunting her by claiming that he tricked Thomas into signing divorce papers, and he warns her that she must approve the divorce within 2 nights and reaffirm the pact she made when she summoned him as a child, or he will kill Thomas and let the plague consume Wiesborg.
Right. So she knows. Her and Thomas both know, Nosferatu's real. Orlok is here. He is coming for me. right? Willem Dafoe's character knows it. The doctor at this point even kind of knows it. And it's like the Hardings that are still kind of holding off. And Orlok has arrived, on an empty ship, a ghost ship that's carried the plague over. The town starts to go into like quarantine and people are just dying from the plague, and also Orlok himself. And Ellen at this point she's kind of put in a bind, right? Because he does say, like, you have 2 nights to reconfirm yourself to me, or I will wreak havoc, like, on everyone that you love.
And then he wreaks havoc on Friedrich's wife.
Yeah.
And he also kills the children.
Oh, my God. I know. I was like, I've seen Dracula stuff before, and I guess I should have expected it. But that was still one part where I was like, damn, he killed the kids.
And at the funeral, they're like, we should go talk to him, and there's some reservation there, but then Friedrich's like, no, it's your fault, this is you did this, it's you. And finally Thomas is like, hey, it's real, okay, it's real. He's got this
Harding
bite mark on him.
obviously, like, he's fucked up. Like, his wife and his 2 daughters and his unborn son were all just murdered. He doesn't know really from what. Some people are telling him it's this vampire. Others just think it's the plague or something that, like, Ellen brought on or something, right? And he really blames them for his family's death, which in a way he's not wrong about. And he's going a little crazy, And they're able to kind of convince him, like, it is Nosferatu. We need to do something about this. But I think he's just gone so far. He's just, his brain has just like, it can't handle the loss of his family, and he essentially kills himself, like, in the mausoleum with his wife and daughters.
Yeah, by hugging his wife and getting the plague.
Yeah, he lost it, man.
Which brings us to the final rally of how things are going to go down. Essentially, Willem Dafoe's version of Van Helsing, Von Franz, he explains, okay, we'll go to the resting place of Nosferatu and we'll stab him in his coffin in the middle of the day, and that'll take him out. Mm-hmm. That'll do it. And Thomas and the other doctor, they're like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. But at the same time, right, the doctor knows, like, that's not what's going to kill Nosferatu. Like, him and Ellen have their little side conversation, and they both know, like, she is the one that has to do it. Right. But Thomas thinks that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And, like, can we talk too about the scene right before this with her and him, and where, like, she really goes crazy and has, like, that demonic thing, and then they fuck like on the couch or whatever. Yeah. But, like, that scene throughout this movie, Lily Rose Depp was amazing. But that scene specifically, I just think, like, shows her acting ability and how good she is, because she went from that, like, naive, like, oh, I am your wife, to, like, when she's, like, on her knees in front of Nicholas Hoult and she's like, you could never please me like he could. And she's all, like, possessed and demonic. And you're like, whoa. I don't know. I thought she did really, really well in that scene.
Yeah, I enjoyed her performance in that scene. I also enjoyed Nicholas Holt's performance in that scene, because I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, at that point, I would be like, why are you my wife? Like,
the way she's just able to, like, change her voice and, like, her eyes, like, rolling into the back of her head, and, like, the body, like, when she would just, like, shake her hands, I was like, oh my God, like, it's so unsettling. It's so creepy and so good.
Yeah.
So good.
I also enjoyed the shot that they had where she was crying blood, and I read that was human blood that they used for the tears that she had. That
seems
was
unsafe
blood
to me. Like, using real human blood. There's disease that's passed from blood. Like, that's how AIDS is passed. I feel like that's not safe.
I'm sure they did their research.
I know, but still, I wouldn't want real human blood on me. I'd be like, no, thank you. Corn syrup.
So Thomas Holt and Von Franz are on their way.
You called him Thomas Holt.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nicholas Holt. Right. So Thomas
Hutter
and Von Franz.
Their last name is Hutter.
Thomas and Von Franz are on their way to take out Nosferatu. And upon arriving at his coffin, they open it up, and I forget what they see.
Rats. It's just rats.
Well, yeah, they see rats, but I mean, when they get in the coffin,
I think it's just rats.
No, there was the assistant guy in the coffin.
Oh, the employer?
Yeah.
Herr Knock? No.
Yeah, Herr Knock. They stab Herr Knock in the chest.
That's right. Oh, you're right. He is in there. And then lots of rats.
He is the rat master, so.
The king of the rats. The rat king. But, and Nicholas Hoult realizes, like, shit, Orlok's not here.
Yeah, he's like, you knew this all along.
You knew all along. And so he's like, I need to rush back to my wife. Meanwhile, Ellen knows what she needs to do. Like, she knows that she has to sacrifice herself to finally get rid the world of Nosferatu. And so she calls him to her. He appears and she's like essentially in a wedding dress. It looks like she's in this like white dress with a veil. And she's like, I do, like, I take you, now drink from me. And she essentially like distracts him with her body, like keeps him there feeding from her until the sun rises.
Yeah, and when he's ready to stop drinking, she just tells him, more, drink more.
Drink more. And then the sun rises and he's like, the sun.
I wish he said it like that.
Yeah, he doesn't. But, it kind of happens like that. And he dies. But so does she.
And then Thomas and Von Franz and the other doctor show up. And Von Franz is like, yes, one sacrifice.
She had to sacrifice herself to save us.
And he's holding a cat.
Yeah, he does. And you hear the purring. But also you get this like really, really creepy shot from above where you see Ellen's laying on the bed on her back. She's dead. She's now died. And Orlok's body is on top of her naked. And he's like emaciated. Like his legs are like little and his skin is disgusting. And he's like laying on top of her and like very sexual because he was just drinking all her blood. But now they've both died. And that scene, I was like, ugh. Ugh. And poor Thomas, he lost his wife.
Yep. And then we cut to black.
It? That's it.
And that's it. That's where it ends.
That's all, folks.
But yeah, and I feel like with the movie ending like that, I feel like there's plenty of people that still even online are like, what was that supposed to mean? What's that? Well, how is that supposed to... That is how the movie ends.
Yeah, I was telling you, there's a bunch of articles that are like, the ending of Nosferatu explained. I'm like, what needs to be explained?
Yeah, that's the story, okay? Like, what is missing in terms of explanation? There's a guy, he wanted to hook up with Lily Rose Depp, and her character Ellen, the guy is Nosferatu. He's basically death, and her husband was trying to stop him, and unfortunately,
she was the one that
he
had to kill him.
himself did not succeed, but Ellen did.
Yeah.
She did,
and there we go.
And that's the story.
Good defeats evil. I like how you said though, like Nosferatu is death. Because I think that's another theme throughout, that we kind of talked about earlier. Like, he is the personification of death. Like, he is.
Well, I think
death.
she says that, too.
Yeah.
She says that
Whereas
in the movie.
she's like the maiden, like she's not a virgin, but, she's like the maiden that. And I feel like that's a theme that happens a lot in like art as well, where you have like the maiden and death, like beauty and decay, these like juxtapositions. And I feel like that comes across a lot in this film as well.
She says in a scene that, like, I didn't tell you before that, like, I had, like, made this call to death or something, or, like, I had made this vow with death that I would, like, love them forever or something like that. And she's like, and I liked it.
Well, yeah. And it goes back to, again, these like juxtapositions where like she obviously is repulsed by him. Right. And like, but at the same time, she's like enamored with him. Like it's this love for like the dark and the demonic that she kind of has going on. And, all these opposite things that are going on in this film, which I found interesting. Also, similarly, like science versus alchemy, that's like a piece of this as well. Lust versus love, life versus death, all these kind of like things that are coming forth in the film that I thought were done really well.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that she is on his side, so to speak, in terms of defeating Nosferatu, but at the same time, she's coming forward like, oh yeah, like I'm totally infatuated with Nosferatu, by the way. I keep dreaming about him. And, like it is wonderful when he calls my name. And,
yeah. Well, it's like she's sacrificing herself, but she's kind of getting something out of it that she's been like kind of into.
It's nice
You
when
know what I mean?
keep me company, Thomas, but really, I like it when death calls me.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think we've talked enough. I mean, I did at the beginning, but like talked enough about Bill Skarsgård and how well he did in this movie and how, the character that he created of Orlok and how creepy it is. And I know in some some interviews and articles and stuff, he was talking about how he feels like Nosferatu is really probably like the most evil character he's ever played. And he's like, I don't know if I want to do something this evil again, which is interesting because if you look at the other character he's played, Pennywise, that's like a really evil character, right? But I think that one's a little more like, what's the word I want? Campy, in a way. And I think this was just like downright like gritty evil. But he did it so well.
So some of the things I read online about this movie, some fun facts I read about this movie. This film was intended to be Robert Eggers' second film after he released The Witch. You can find some more information about that. But he did, in fact, say all over the place. He did a lot of work putting this film together back in the day. He was writing this film around the time of The Witch, after The Witch. He had done a high school play of Nosferatu even before The Witch. So lots of stuff went into him and this production of Nosferatu.
Yeah, well, it's like the film kept getting greenlit, but then something would happen and it would fall through, right? And like from early on, he had Bill Skarsgård like attached to the project, but actually as Thomas. And, Skarsgård was really interested in working with Eggers after watching The Witch. And, his brother was in The Northman, which was also directed by Eggers. So he was really interested in being in this film. And it never seemed to work out because it kept, they would talk about it being done and then something would happen and it'd fall through. And when finally it got the final go ahead, he casted Nicholas Hoult as Thomas, and Bill was kind of like, what, am I still part of this project? And that's when Eggers was like, I want you to be Nosferatu. Second time he's played a vampire. Bill Skarsgård also played a vampire in Hemlock Grove, which was a really good TV show on Netflix.
There can never be too many vampires in our lives.
I am of the Twilight generation, so I'm a vampire girly. I love everything vampire related.
To get a very specific and stylized romantic moonlit look, Jaron Blaschke, the cinematographer, incorporated actual candlelight to light their scenes.
Oh, I also read that to get kind of the eerie evening or nighttime shoots, they would actually shoot during the day and then in post-production go through the footage and remove the red and yellow colors from the film. And that's what gave it that really stylized looking nighttime scenes. Which I thought was interesting.
I see here the language that Nosferatu uses to speak. That's Dacian. If I didn't say that before, Dacian.
You said something with the D. You did.
Yeah. So if I didn't say that correcely earlier in this episode.
I don't know how it's pronounced.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Dacian, Dyson. A Dyson vacuum? I don't know.
I like that language. Keeps my floors clean.
I'm thinking there's draconian with the R, so that's why I feel like it's Dacian or something. I don't know.
But it is a dead language. Let's all learn it now so we can talk to each other.
Let's all learn a dead language.
Let's put it on Duolingo.
Might be on there. They have Klingon. You never know.
I read Bill Skarsgård had to be in the makeup chair for 3.5 to 4 hours each time.
Well, I can imagine. I saw somewhere that, because we see him nude. We see his little wee-wee. Not his real one, a prosthetic one. But for those scenes, right, the only things not covered in prosthetics, he said, were the palms of his hands and the soles of his feet. So literally head to toe, the rest of him is all prosthetics. So I can imagine that's a long time in the makeup chair.
Yeah.
Do you know Nicholas Hoult was gifted a framed piece of the prosthetic penis from the film?
Well, I know that because you told me.
You. Yeah, it was, I guess, they filmed a scene, right, where Orlok feeds from Thomas. And after they filmed the scene, Eggers asked him, how was that? And Nicholas Hoult was like, well, I felt his prosthetic penis on my leg the whole time. So it was a little awkward. So as a gift, he gave him a framed piece of a prosthetic penis that he has. Nicholas Hoult said he has it hanging up in his home.
Hey,
to each
no better
own.
place to put it. In the scene in the remake, the new Nosferatu, The scene where Knock bites off a bird's head actually comes from the book in which Dracula's servant Reinfeld eats birds, and Orlok killing the Harding's children calls to mind the vampire version of Lucy attacking kids in the book.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Renfield. Holt.
Oh, Renfield,
Nicholas Holt
yes.
also played Renfield in the new movie Renfield.
Renfield, yes.
Lots of vampire things going on here. Yeah. Well, and also, fun fact, ready for this one? Bill Skarsgård, right, is the son of Stellan Skarsgård, Lily Rose Depp, obviously the son of Johnny Depp. Their parents starred in a film together. Can you guess that film, Adam?
Lily Rose Depp and who? So
Johnny Depp and Stellan Skarsgård. They were in a film together.
Okay.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
That makes sense.
Skarsgård played Davy Jones, right?
Yeah, I was going to say Davy Jones.
Yeah. I thought that was fun. And now their kids are in a movie together.
Wait, Stellan Skarsgård was Davy Jones?
Yes.
Wow. I got to go back and watch this now.
I'm pretty sure that's who he played. It was Pirates. I'm pretty sure he was Davy Jones. No. Isn't he Will Turner's dad? Hold on. I'm wrong. Let me go. I'm IMDbing it very, very quickly. I think he's actually Will Turner's dad. The one on Davy Jones' boat, though, and he has like the starfish on his face. Yeah, he's Bootstrap Bill. I was wrong, everyone. They were still in a movie together, though, so that's right. So the parents of the leads in this one were in Pirates of the Caribbean together, but Stellan Skarsgård played Bill Turner, Bootstrap Bill.
All right, well, that brings us into our pivotal moment of our review here, the Slurps Up or Slurps Down section. Slurps Up means that we enjoyed the movie, we think it is worth your time, we think you should go check it out, and the Slurps Down means that we don't think you should check it out, we think it is a waste of your time, and we think that it belongs in the trash where the raccoons live and I thrive. Laura?
You're also wearing a raccoon shirt right now, so it's very, very apt.
I thought it was an appropriate statement.
It's a raccoon with a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. Oh my god. Anyhow, I absolutely give this movie a Slurps Up. I think this is... Adam will, I think, not agree with me, but I think this is maybe one of my favorite movies of 2024, if I'm being honest. The cinematography is like haunting and eerie and everything you want of like a gothic film. And the acting is just done so well. Lily Rose Depp, again, like she is so good in this movie. And I'm a vampire girly. I love everything vampires. I just think this was such a beautiful film and a great homage to like what's come before it. Not just the 1922 Nosferatu, but Dracula, the novel, and other versions of Dracula that we've seen. I cannot say enough good things about this movie. So obviously, I think everyone should go and see it. Watch his other films as well. I'll say The Northman. Probably my least favorite of his movies, which hurts me to say because I love Alexander Skarsgård. But this is probably my favorite Eggers movie at this point. And you, Adam? Slurps Up, Slurps Down?
I would absolutely say Slurps Up. I don't know if I would go as far as you and saying I'm going to create such a wash of mementos of a parade there, but man, it just looks fantastic. The acting is fantastic. Yeah, I can't think of another movie off the top of my head of 2024 that I could really praise that I saw quite like this one. We did see a few other movies back in 2024 that new releases in theaters. And I might need to get out a pen and paper to really write down and think like, okay, what other movies really built up the steam for me and made me leave the theater thinking this was something to really remember. But this had some fantastic qualities to it. Yeah. Going in, seeing, as Laura had mentioned, the cinematography, the acting, the soundtrack to this movie, and my main thing as I was sitting there watching this was thinking just the storyline that was just taking me from front to back. It wasn't something where I ever felt like I was getting lost or wondering what's yet to come, and not in a bad way either. There were times where I was sitting there thinking, what is going to be the next step in this movie in a thrilling way? I wonder what's going to happen next. But it was never a feeling of like, I'm completely lost. I don't know what's going to happen. It was a very nice feeling I had watching that movie. And it's a pleasant feeling to think that I can go in watching a movie written and directed by Robert Eggers and get that feeling each time after watching his movies. And it's just a joyous ride. I love every one of the films I've seen of his.
Would you rank this one, 4. Though, as 3 out of 4? I feel like you would. I think you'd put The Witch in the Lighthouse above this.
I would probably. I mean, are we doing up to 5 or
no? Just ranking his films.
Oh, out of 4 movies?
Yeah, he has 4 films. This, I think you would rank this as your 3rd favorite.
I don't remember. I'd have to watch The Northman. I don't remember.
Did you even watch it?
I don't think so.
As I said, I should love that movie. It's Alexander Skarsgård and they're like Vikings. And it was good. I did like it, but this movie definitely tops it for me. Sorry, I'm batting things around.
Yeah, but otherwise, I mean, The Witch and the Lighthouse, those two, those are up there. But this movie, it was good.
It's my number 1 Eggers film. And your number 3.
I'll give it that. It is good though, but otherwise, yeah, I think I would still put The Witch in the Lighthouse above this.
Yeah. I figured you would.
Yeah, but otherwise, slurps up all the way on this one. I would definitely recommend checking this out. See it while it's still in theaters, and tell your friends. Go with a friend. Watch it while you can.
Don't go to an AMC though, because it takes 40 minutes for the movie to start.
That is another kind of story. And with that being said, that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Be sure to follow us on social media at Screen Slurps on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Ghana, or any other podcast streaming service out there. And if you enjoy what you hear, slide on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. It will help us a lot. And if there's any crazy movies that you want to hear about, let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media pages, and trust me when I say we will be sure to talk about it. So closing out, I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Laura Meisner.
Slurps up, and we will catch you later.
Laters.